The end of neutral technology. For a long time, we told ourselves a comforting story. Technology was neutral. Tools were just tools. Outcomes depended on how humans chose to use them. But quietly, that belief stopped matching reality. Today, technology doesn't simply assist decisions. It shapes them. It prioritizes certain actions, amplifies specific behaviors, and makes some outcomes far more likely than others. To understand why this matters now, we have to confront an uncomfortable truth. Technology has never been neutral, and pretending otherwise has allowed power to hide in plain sight. In earlier eras, tools extended human capability without directing it. A hammer didn't care what you built. A road didn't decide where you traveled. Responsibility rested clearly with the user. But digital systems introduced something new. They didn't just enable action. They structured choice. The reveal begins when software started encoding values implicitly. Algorithms decided what content was visible. Platforms defined what counted as success. Metrics replaced judgment. Defaults replaced deliberation. No one forced behavior, yet behavior converged toward what systems rewarded most. This shift blurred accountability. When outcomes felt systemic, blame became abstract. Was it the user's fault for responding to incentives, or the designer's fault for creating them? Technology appeared neutral on the surface, while quietly enforcing priorities underneath. As these systems scaled, neutrality became a myth. Recommendation engines shaped culture. Market mechanisms shaped risk-taking. Automation shaped labor itself. Each system optimized for goals that reflected values: efficiency, growth, engagement, whether those values were openly acknowledged or not. The most powerful part was invisibility. When values are embedded into code, they feel like natural laws rather than choices. People adapt without realizing they are adapting. Technology stops looking like influence and starts feeling like reality. The unsettling realization was not that technology had power. It was that its power had been mistaken for objectivity. As the myth of neutrality faded, its consequences became harder to ignore. Systems once described as objective began producing outcomes that felt anything but. Certain voices rose consistently. Certain behaviors were rewarded repeatedly. Certain risks became normalized, while others were quietly discouraged. The pattern was too consistent to be accidental. The conflict emerged when technology started shaping values rather than reflecting them. Platforms claimed to show people what they wanted, yet desires themselves were being trained. Markets claimed to price risk efficiently, yet incentives nudged participants toward fragility. Automation claimed to reduce bias, yet encoded the assumptions of its creators at scale. What made this shift dangerous was deniability. When a system produced harm, no one felt fully responsible. Designers pointed to users. Users pointed to algorithms. Algorithms pointed to data. Each layer appeared neutral, yet together they formed a machine that actively steered behavior while claiming innocence. In digital environments, neutrality dissolved fastest. Ranking systems didn't just organize information, they defined relevance. Visibility became value. Silence became exclusion. Without ever issuing a command, systems decided what mattered and what faded away. Culture adjusted itself around these invisible signals. Institutions leaned on neutrality as protection. If a decision came from technology, it felt impartial. If harm occurred, it could be framed as unintended. Responsibility softened. Ethics became a postscript rather than a foundation. Neutrality wasn't just a belief. It was a shield. People adapted instinctively. Creators shaped work for algorithms rather than audiences. Workers optimized for metrics rather than meaning. Participants learned which behaviors were rewarded and repeated them, even when they conflicted with personal values. The system never forced compliance. It simply made alternatives costly. The deeper issue was not bias alone. It was direction. Technology was not just amplifying behavior. It was steering toward outcomes aligned with specific priorities. Speed over care, scale over depth, engagement over truth. These priorities weren't debated. They were embedded. As more of life passed through technological filters, the cost of pretending neutrality grew. When values are hidden, they cannot be questioned. And when they cannot be questioned, they become default. The world wasn't being shaped by neutral tools. It was being shaped by unexamined choices, locked into systems too powerful to feel optional. As the influence of non-neutral technology deepened, resistance became increasingly difficult to articulate. People sensed the pressure, but struggled to name its source. Outcomes felt guided, yet no one appeared to be guiding them. The system worked, just not in ways anyone had consciously agreed to. The conflict intensified when attempts to fix harm focused on behavior instead of structure. Users were told to choose better. Creators were told to be more responsible. Workers were told to adapt. But the incentives remained unchanged. The technology continued rewarding the same patterns, quietly overriding every appeal to ethics or intention. This exposed a deeper imbalance. Technology did not just mediate choices. It ranked them, prioritized them, accelerated some while suffocating others. What looked like freedom was often constrained by invisible funnels directing attention, labor, and capital toward predefined outcomes. Inside organizations, this created moral distance. Decisions framed as technical avoided ethical scrutiny. Metrics replaced judgment. If something performed well, it was considered good. If it failed, it was removed. Values were reduced in numbers because numbers scaled more easily than reflection. Emotionally, people adapted by compartmentalizing. Discomfort became background noise. Success was measured externally. Responsibility felt diluted. When systems rewarded actions that conflicted with personal values, many followed anyway, not out of malice, but survival. The system did not punish dissent. It simply ignored it. Meanwhile, those who understood the directional nature of technology gained leverage. They didn't argue about neutrality. They designed outcomes. By choosing what systems optimize for, they shaped behavior indirectly and persistently. Power flowed not to those who used technology, but to those who defined its goals. The buildup reached a critical realization. As long as technology claimed neutrality, it avoided accountability. And as long as it avoided accountability, its influence expanded without consent or debate. The danger was no longer that technology had values. It was that those values were invisible and therefore unchallengeable. The turning point arrived when the idea of neutrality finally collapsed under its own weight. What had once felt like an abstract debate became a live reality. Systems were not merely reflecting the world. They were actively shaping it, rewarding certain futures while quietly starving others. The climax revealed a simple but unsettling truth. Every technology encodes priorities. What it measures becomes important. What it optimizes becomes normal. What it ignores slowly disappears. Neutrality was never the absence of values. It was the absence of accountability for the values already embedded. Once this became clear, responsibility moved upstream. The question was no longer how people should behave inside systems, but how those systems should be designed in the first place. Designers began acknowledging trade-offs instead of hiding behind metrics. Organizations started questioning what success actually meant, rather than assuming performance equaled progress. Out of this shift, a more honest approach began to take shape. Technology was treated as governance, not infrastructure, as culture, not convenience. Systems were evaluated not only by what they produced, but by what they normalized over time. Slower growth became acceptable if it preserved trust. Friction was reintroduced where speed had caused harm. Transparency replaced claims of objectivity. The resolution reframed the relationship between humans and tools. Technology did not lose power. It gained context. Its influence became something to be discussed, challenged, and shaped deliberately rather than denied. The values moved from the margins of design back to the center, where they had always belonged. This did not mean rejecting innovation. It meant owning it, accepting that every system pushes the world in a direction, whether intentionally or not, and that choosing not to choose is still a choice, with consequences that compound quietly over time. The end of neutral technology was not a loss. It was an invitation to design with intention, instead of pretending intention wasn't there. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future. The end